Hi everyone, it's Snowball. I've been playing a lot of Space Invaders lately, and I wanted to make this video of how I design ships. Because I find the biggest thing about design ships that it's super easy to build something that is, it's functional, but it's hard to make something look good. And a big part of that is kind of looking at the shapes and designs that are already there and kind of making that work. But starting out here, I typically start with just a landing gear and building up a platform from there to where I can place the cockpit. And then from there, I typically build and off of that, kind of going off its shapes and kind of molding it into something unique. And when we're building ships, it's really important to keep in mind that you only have to keep, there's only a handful of parts that you absolutely need to have. Those being the cockpit, a power supply whether that's batteries or hydrogen, engine, which includes if you have hydrogen, it also needs the fuel as well as the thrusters. Those are the primary objects that you need to have on all your ships. Now, it's super simple to put all those together, have it function, have it work, to put more stuff on it, a grinder, a drill, a weapon, but trying to get it to where it looks good is always the hardest part. Like here, it takes me a couple tries before I'm able to find the right shape to kind of mold the cockpit. Even to get the nose right, it's going to take me a couple tries. And as we go throughout this video, you'll notice that it takes me a couple moments to, kind of play around with different ideas to kind of get different weapon systems working, get different profiles for the wings and whatnot. And most of the times, I end up having to actually rebuild the engine bay because I find I usually underbuild it. I usually have to go back in and put more stuff in. So even with me having an obscene amount of hours just building ships, I mean at least 200 hours of my time in 15 years, it's just me building ships. I'm still constantly revising and fixing my designs as I'm going through it. Sometimes it even takes me a couple of tries before I get something that actually works. And most of it ends up just being trial and error. If you're not, going ahead and giving it a try and accepting that its odds are not going to look good on your first attempt, you're not going to get any better. The biggest thing about this is just going at it until you get something that you can be proud of. Sometimes it takes a little bit. I mean, this took me around an hour and a half to get this ship going. So it takes time. But like I said, a lot of getting ships to look good is just playing off of the shapes that are already there, which is what this cockpit that I end up using is really good for that because of how it kind of slopes and how it's shaped in order to provide you a base for those shapes. And going with that, like, it's important to keep things not blocky. We have some parts that are blocky, that's fine. But if you're constantly going and making rectangles and squares because it's easy, you're not going to be able to get something that's going to look crisp and uniform. It might look uniform, it's going to look more sterile than good. And something that I find can really help with ship design and getting something that's genuinely unique is to use something like Lego. Just go ahead and look at the designs that are there from all the concept arts of other ships, look at the big ships, look at the small ships, look at different ships from different films and whatnot, and kind of use that as a reference. That's what I use 90% of the time for all of my designs, is just going ahead, looking at stuff, spending, like 10 minutes, looking at each design, looking at what's making them functional. I mean, that can be really difficult even with that, because not all the ships are scientifically going to work in space, and not scientifically aren't going to work in Space Invaders. So one only has forward and backwards thrust. Even though they might not do forward thrust, most of the ships you can only see their engines, their vacuum engines. Well, Space Invaders, of course, you need, at least in atmosphere, the 3 directions: forward, left, right, back, and your vertical thrust. Now, of course, when you're in space, you also need the downward thrust. That's not as important in the atmosphere, which I really put downward thrust on my ships in atmosphere just because it's kind of pointless. But even just trying to get those engines incorporated in a way that looks good without them being completely vulnerable and impractical to put anything else on your chip is really difficult. And that even causes my designs to just tank. I have often times where I have to just completely restart because the engines are not going well. And the difficult part is just trying to figure out how to place the larger elements, whereas you're not all of a sudden it's only large elements. You can't have, there's no space for anything else. Like when you're doing hydrogen engines, the O2 H2 generator, the hydrogen fuel tanks, it's possible they're not going to get hit right away and detonate. Batteries, if you're using, typically I use 2 large batteries, that's typically enough for me, but trying to find space for those can also be really difficult. Even trying to find space to properly put weapon systems can be difficult and have it all plugged up properly. I'm trying to have issues here as well. But like I said, a lot of trying to get these stuff to be looking good and still be functional is just trial and error. Like my first ship is, I'll put a picture on here, but it was literally a rectangle. Rectangle with thrusters, it was awful. But what happens is that after you kind of play around with it, you can kind of get to something better. I know that's not very good of an explanation, but a lot of it's just trial and error. And like my second ship I ever built was the Mercury, which was a massive ship that is almost entirely made of heavy blocks, like 30 batteries on the sucker, 3 reactors, covered in guns. Like that was my second ship, and it turned out looking really good. Well, the problem with the Mercury is that it's impractical. So that goes back to it. I was still not figuring out what was good for ships. Even though the Mercury looked good, it got it to look good on my second try was a miracle. But you know, like even at that point, you're still figuring stuff out. So it took me a couple more tries, got through the Condor, got through all my other designs, which you can find on Steam under my profile Noble Musket, whatnot. You can find them there. You can download them. You can look at them. Look at how I built it. You're more than welcome to. You're free to look around and play around with, spawn in, test, whatnot. But it takes time. And I find that when you're building either small-scale or large-scale ships, the best place to start is to start at the front or the back. Typically, the front will give you a better idea of the profile you have, but starting at the back at the engines can also be a really good tactic as well. Once you get that solid design and start going, it becomes significantly easier to build something that looks good. And even then, if you don't get it on that first try, you just keep messing around with it. Like you can see in this video how many times I destroy and put things back in place and kind of play with things until I actually get something that ends up looking pretty good again. This isn't like the best looking ship. Bottom got a little out of place, I can get rid of that and it'll look fine. But in general, like, it's just, like I said, it's just trial and error. You just need to put your mind to it, spend some time on it, don't rush it, and just do what feels right. But if you don't give it that try, go ahead and look at it and look at all the different angles, look at how it looks from the front, from the side, from the bottom, from the back, all of that, and you're just like putting stuff together, you're just gonna end up with like a brick again. So it's really important just to let it flow. Look at the shapes. Let the shapes tell you where it wants to go. If it wants to go down in a slope, you put a slope there. If you want to have certain design, just play around with it. So now that the build is done, you can see it turned out half decent, I would say. We got lots of good shapes, yeah, lots of good shapes. You know, there were some bumps along the way which can be seen, and I rectified those. I wanted to keep those in the video so everyone can see kind of the design process, see that you don't do it on your first try. To me, that's important. That's seen. In general, like this ship is a half decent design. Only problem is some of the configures can be placed better. Would be better to use a different storage container so you have more connectors rather than the two small ones either side. But in general, this is a good survival fighter thing that will do well for me. And if you can follow it. You can follow it as along as I build this, which is a bit difficult with it being 4x speed, but you can do that and you can kind of get a feel of my thought process and everything that's going into it. Is it perfect? No. But the point of this was to kind of show that design process, everything that goes into it, all the different components for atmospheric ships, everything that you need to actually be able to be successful at building them and building them well. But with further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys want to see any specific designs or have any questions on how things work or want different ships built, I am on Horizon. Leave in the comments. I'll be happy to do it.